I remember like talking to friends and they'd be like, oh, I hate having to have sex with my husband, blah, blah. And I just would be like, no, like you're thinking about it all wrong. I mean, I used to think the same way too. But then when I learned like we can both enjoy it and it's meant to be the glue that like keeps our marriage together. It's like a secret weapon.
Welcome to the Get Your Marriage On podcast. I'm your host, Dan Purcell, a Christian marriage and intimacy expert and coach. I'm on a mission to help couples have the best sex and most emotionally intimate marriages possible. Our episodes cover topics you've always wondered about and are packed with practical advice designed to help you take your marriage to the next level. If you're married and plan to be married a long time, and you want a vibrant and thriving sex life, welcome. You've come to the right place. This is what this podcast is all about. Building a long-term intimate marriage is the most exciting, demanding, and soul-expanding work that many of us will ever do in this life. Although the specific challenges to confront and overcome will be different from couple to couple, many of the same tools work for many couples. I met Keith and Lindsey through my Get Your Marriage On program, where my team and I help couples and individuals implement various tools and strategies into their marriage to bring their intimacy to the next level. Keith and Lindsey are definitely the kinds of people you'd love to have as close neighbors and friends. They're really genuinely good people, and you can tell that they like each other very much. They've agreed to share their story with you today in hopes of inspiring you in your marriage. In this episode, Keith and Lindsey will answer questions such as, what misconceptions and societal pressures affect sex and marital roles? What tools help them most in their journey? How did they rewrite the many narratives and scripts that we inherit from our culture and families that get in the way of building a good, intimate marriage and sex life? How to balance the demands of work, kids, travel, and intimacy all in marriage. Before we get to the interview, I want to invite you to our next in-person retreat on October 10th. It's for married couples who are in otherwise happy marriages but wish things were better in the intimacy department. These retreats are not only fun, romantic, and insightful, they're transformative. You'll walk away with all the tools you need to take your marriage to the next level. You'll have a newfound appreciation for each other and a perspective that will shape the way you interact with each other for years to come. And you don't need to just take my word for it. You can go to our website and view the many testimonials and videos of those that have been to my past retreats talking about their experience. Now, if you can't attend the retreat, the second best option that I have for you right now is the Get Your Marriage On program. I took all the tools I teach at the retreat, professionally filmed it, and that's not all. When you join the program, you get to work with me and my team to up-level your marriage in your circumstances. It's a done-for-you solution to upgrade intimacy in your marriage. Now, if you found this podcast helpful, will you please take a moment to write a review on Apple Podcasts? If you hear your review read on the podcast, and I promise I'll keep it anonymous, I won't say your name out loud, email support@getyourmarriageon.com, and I'll personally mail you a gift. Here's a recent review I received. This podcast is a must-listen, offering amazing advice that genuinely improves relationships. The hosts and guests provide invaluable strategies for building stronger, more fulfilling partnerships. Thanks for that review. Now, let's go on to our interview today and introduce you to Keith and Lindsey. So, Keith and Lindsey, how did you two first meet each other?
We first met each other at college, and the very first time we met was just at a bonfire. Things were going great. We were talking. He was cute. I thought he was interested, and then he just totally left and didn't ask for my number or anything. And I was like, that was really weird.
What a jerk.
Yeah, what a jerk.
I feel like I got to defend myself here a little bit. I went with somebody else to the bonfire, like a group of friends. They were the ones leaving. I didn't have a choice to be like, oh, I'm going to hang out. So I should be able to defend myself a little bit.
All right. So then we met again a few months later. We had a radio broadcasting class together. And as most college kids show up, in their sweats to college class, he would show up in like a suit and tie. And then I was like, man, again, what a jerk. This guy thinks he's all that. He thinks he's better than all the rest of us because he's on the college TV station. He has to show off and everything. And then later when we got to talking and I actually asked more about him, I realized he was working in between classes. So
Uh-huh.
then I felt like the jerk because he legit was not just trying to show off.
We started at the bottom. There was no way to go but up from where we started.
And his job required him to wear a suit or a shirt and tie. So
Yeah,
gotcha.
I was selling insurance at the time, and so I had to dress up. I would
But
go in between classes. I would go and sell and come back, and so that's why I had to dress up.
he also drove a motorcycle.
Uh-huh.
I mean, so there was a lot of weird mixed signals about him. I didn't know what to think.
I like to keep people on their toes.
And then fast forward a few years, you were dating different people. Tell me about that story.
Good luck.
The next semester, when I was in radio broadcasting, I needed a partner to do a radio show with.
Uh-huh.
So I asked him if he would do a show with me, and I didn't even realize he wasn't in the class the next semester. And he was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll do the show with you." So we started hanging out really consistently, and I don't know, we just had really good chemistry together on the radio show and when we would hang out in person. So we weren't like hanging out to date. And yeah, we just had really good chemistry and a spark, but he had been dating somebody for a long time before. And I had sort of been dating somebody as well. And
I remember the first time that we hung out outside of like radio broadcasting, she texted me. She had just gotten her wisdom teeth out.
Oh,
and
yeah.
had texted me and was like, "Hey, you should come over." I'm pretty sure it was the drugs that did this. But she's like, "Hey, you should come over." And I just happened to not have anything going on. So we went and hung out. And that was the first time that we ever hung out outside of like the school. Was she had just had her wisdom teeth. So she was all swollen from that and on drugs.
when you see someone at their worst and then he wants to hang out with me again after that, it was a good sign.
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't, we'd never really had that like instantaneous attraction, even though we dated lots of other people. So yeah, it took off pretty quick that we were like, wow, this is a real thing.
Yeah, we were friends for a while. In fact, I remember in kitchen of her dorm, we'd been probably hanging out for a month or so at least. And we were making something. I don't even remember what we were making, but she looks at me and she just basically says, "Why haven't you kissed me yet?" And I was like, "Well, we're having a lot of fun. I don't want to ruin it. Like, we're friends right now. I don't want to ruin it." And that's kind of really what started the romantic portion of our life, I guess.
Gotcha. But you had a girlfriend in DC at the time.
I did. I had a girlfriend. I had dated her 2 years, and when we got to Southern Utah University, that's where we went to college. When we got there, she wanted to do an internship in DC, which
Ironically, I had done that internship before. And I didn't really know her, but we were both ambassadors at the school. She asked me, "Hey, didn't you do this internship? Should I do it? Was it fun?" I said, "Yes, it's amazing. Go do it." And then later on, when we started dating and I found out there was a connection there, everybody thought I'd like sabotaged their relationship. And we went out to dinner one time and the waitress walked over and was like, "So good to see you. Aren't you so glad you sent your girlfriend off to DC?" And blah, blah. And I was like, "What just happened?" Literally, we were the talk of the town that I sent the girlfriend away.
Which is funny because that was all before we had ever met when she went to DC.
She decided to go. Yeah, we hadn't even been hanging out at that time.
So,
oh well.
That's funny. Great.
The rest, they say, is history.
That's good. And then you've been married, and tell me how did your sex life start off in your marriage?
We've been married for we've been married 15 years. It'll be 15 years in September. And I think starting off, I want to say that maybe this is just me. I want to say it was typical of most Christian couples is, for me, I'm the higher drive. I look at it and I'm super excited to get married because now we can be intimate. We can finally do this stuff. And I think she was as well. But then we got married and it was like, wait a minute, this is way different than what both of us imagined. And it was a struggle at first. It was a struggle. We moved around a lot early on in our marriage. We lived in Southern Utah. We lived in Florida. We lived in Baltimore. We lived in Georgia. We lived in Salt Lake. So we moved around a ton. And I think that was good for us to be away from family and away from those comforts. But at the same time, it was really difficult because we were still trying to find our way. And the intimacy portion of our marriage, we were not even close. In fact, we were playing different sports in the intimacy part, not even close to on the same page. And so it was a struggle.
I think a lot of that, I think a lot of that's probably my fault. Because you're kind of a different person when you're dating, and then when you get married, all of a sudden it's real life, and like, oh, I get to play house now, and da da da, and I don't know, like you have more priorities, and right off the bat, I thought a really important thing to him was to be financially stable. So I was working 2 jobs while he was finishing school, and so I was gone all the time, and like that's not what he needed in our marriage. He didn't need me to be gone working 2 jobs. He needed me home. And so I just didn't make our sex life a priority. I was making working a priority because I thought that's what he wanted. I thought, being financially stable. And so, yeah, we just got further and further and further apart. And I think part of that is when you're dating, I don't know, you just don't have all those added stresses and responsibilities. And no. So
plus there's always, when you're dating, at least as a Christian couple, we believe in not having intimacy before marriage. When you're dating, there's always the flirt part of it, the teasing part of it. That it's got to stop at some point. And then when you get married, that stopping point is taken away. And so at least for us, I think the flirting part of it also was taken away. There was a little bit of the good girl syndrome that comes into that. And that's kind of once that stop was taken away, all of the rest of it went away too. And that was a hard thing for us to navigate and to get through.
Right. So how did you navigate through all that? Or is there more details to all that?
I think a huge key for us was moving away when we first got married, not being by mom, dad, and family and all of that. We had to learn to rely on ourselves and each other. We moved to Florida, didn't know anybody. And so even though we were struggling with this stuff, we also had to be close together because we were all we had.
Right.
And so that was a huge key for us, I think, in learning to slowly overcome this, is the fact that we realized that the world is out there and we just have each other. And if we can stay together, we can get through anything because we have each other. And I think that was a big part of it. And then I also think, for me, the communication around it. We got, and they were not ashamed. We got that book. It was about 3 years into our marriage, I want to say.
No, it was 1 year.
Oh, it was 1 year. It was 1 year into our marriage.
We hit like a breaking point where I was like, something's got to change. And I didn't know what was wrong until I realized like it was our sex life. And it was going to or break us. And if I didn't make it a priority, and not like duty sex,
right,
but that I wanted it the same way that he wanted it, and we made it a priority together. And it's so interesting. I feel like all of a sudden you get married and you should be an expert in adulthood.
Right.
You should be an expert in how to, run a house and how to be married. And then on top of that, like how to be intimate and have sex. And
right. And be good
all
at
of a sudden, yeah, just because I said I do, I should, know. And one of the big things for me was awareness and knowing that I need to learn about my body and his body and sexual desires. And it's an individual journey for every couple. So it's really hard to be like, oh, what do you do? Give me advice. Da, 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 da. And it's a tricky thing. You're not going to ask Google for sex advice. I mean, that's dangerous. So knowing where to go to get that advice and learn. So that, I think, was helpful for us.
That's good. It's that book, that Laura Brotherson book, was really helpful.
Yes, it was good. I think it helped us get past the shame part of it and realize that it's okay to learn about this. It's okay, number one, to not know. It's okay to have these feelings that, okay, we're figuring it out, and it's okay to grow together. And I think that was the big part of I think that was the biggest first step for us, was that book.
Great.
And open that communication. As we read through the book, we talked through the questions together and things that, I think were probably kind of taboo to talk about. So
got used to it. Yeah. Great. And then what happened?
We had 4 kids in 5 years. 4 kids in 5 years. Yeah, that was...
I think it was a blessing that we worked through all that stuff before we had kids, because he saw the worst of me. you know? And he has
Right.
to be able to love me through those, like, I mean, it's no joke. Going
Right.
through 4 pregnancies in 5 years and having toddlers and babies and an exhausted mom. And he had just opened a brand new business. And it was one of the hardest times in our life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think intimacy was pushed to the back burner, but because we both knew it was so important, we tried our best, you know?
Right.
And if we wouldn't have done that, like, I honestly don't know if our marriage would have survived how hard it was having brand new babies if we hadn't, I don't know, made it a priority early in our
Gotcha.
marriage.
I think
That's
the
good.
knowledge that it was a priority helped us get through that because, you know, with kids and all of that stuff, you just don't have time and you're exhausted and you're tired. But to know, like, the fact that she made the effort before all this happened told me that there's effort there. Like, she cares about it, but this is just the stage of life that we're in. And I think that was a big thing for me. That helped me kind of push through that and get through that. Just knowing that, hey, we might not be having it as much as I want or whatever, but I know that it's still a priority to her. I know she cares about it. This is just a stage of life that we're in.
It's not permanent. Right.
Not permanent. Yeah.
Great.
I mean, don't get me wrong. We still had our issues. We still struggled with it. There were still times where, you know, obviously I wanted it, she didn't, whatever. We still went through those tough times, but I think having the knowledge, those tough times, we were able to push through it.
Created a really good foundation.
Yes.
It's like trust. You're trusting in each other, that you still have the best intentions for each other.
Yes. And communication, being able to talk about it, right? Where
Right.
before it was kind of a taboo topic, and it still kind of was at that point, but it was now we can talk about it because we've opened that door. We've started down that path. We know that we can have those conversations and not have it be a big deal.
Great. And then what happened?
I'm a really busy person. So even once we stopped having kids and toddlers, I just kept filling our schedule with this and this and this and this. And intimacy was always on the back burner for us. It was important, but it was on the back burner.
Gotcha.
And,
Define us. No, tease it.
you know, we were just talking about this the other day. I'm a big, like, service person. I always feel like I need to be giving and helping people and putting my time into all these important things. And, you know, and he brought up a good point. He said, you know, giving service as a wife and as a mother is important too. You know,
Yes.
the priority and the effort you put into your husband and your marriage or your kids and your family, like, that's just as important as what you're doing to save the rest of the world.
And just be clear, that's
So-
different than servicing your husband, right?
Yes.
Sexually. That's, I don't think is helpful. But I think what you're saying is you're okay giving service to a neighbor or, you know, foster care and all those other good
Fine.
things.
Yes.
But if you're putting that ahead of your own marriage or your own family, like, that's when you got to rethink where your priorities lie.
Absolutely. You got to put your mask on first, like they say in the airplanes, right? You got to have your oxygen mask on first before you can help others.
That's
And
right.
that's very important. I would say, so kind of back to your previous question, though, you asked kind of then what after we had the kids and all that stuff. I think we kind of plateaued for a while. I think our marriage was good. I mean, we had struggles like everybody else, but we just kind of went through the motions. And then I believe it was in 2020 for Christmas, she found the Intimately Us app. And
Great find, by the way.
Great find. She gave that to me kind of as a Christmas gift and said,
Best Christmas gift ever.
of all
Ever.
time.
It really was. It really
Definitely.
was.
You know, and she had looked into it because where do you go for that kind of information? We've kind of talked about it. We read They Were Not Ashamed book, and there had to be more, right?
Right.
And so when she gave us that, when she gave me that app for Christmas, that was when it really kind of allowed me to spend a little bit more time doing kind of the research and looking into it that I really wanted to do without having the fear of the worldly perspective, right? You talk
Right.
about the pornography and that type of stuff, without having that fear to be able to really dive into it and start to learn about intimacy because you just don't know it. It does not, you have to learn about it,
Yes.
right? And I think that was the next step and the next stage. We had that app for probably about a year to 2 years where I would spend a lot of time listening to podcasts and reading the articles and just learning about stuff that I didn't know about and I was really interested in.
I felt better too, knowing like that's where he was getting his information. I didn't have to feel like scared or skeptical. if he wanted to try something new or talk about something, I wasn't like, why are you bringing that up? What video
Right.
have you been watching?
Right. Uh-huh.
Because I think as women, we get really defensive and skeptical and like, well, why that? Where'd that come from? And so
Right.
that was nice to know we were on the same page about where it was safe information, where it was coming from. That made me feel better, at least.
Yes.
That was big because there was a lot of, anytime that I would bring something up, hey, I want to try this. That was the first initial reaction. Where'd this come from?
Right.
What have you been looking at? What have you been reading? What have you been, right? And right there.
That's really common, by the way. Uh-huh.
Yeah. That skepticism kind of killed any chance of anything, because then I was like, whoa, slow down. Right. So the app was a huge thing for us. We had that app for about a year to 2 years. And then we went on a Mexico trip. And based off the app and a lot of the things that we've been reading, we wanted to make it a sexcation. We kind of learned about that from you and some of that stuff. And so we really put a lot of time and effort into planning it and making it work. And I think that was a huge leap forward for us, in that we were able to get a lot of the, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for.
We're just in a safe place to try it all and to experience things. And I was able to take off my mom hat and my every other hat I had. And that is a big struggle for me. I have so many balls that I'm juggling, and I'm like, I can't even think about that right now. So it was good to step away from it, make it a number one like priority for us.
And to get enough sleep and rested, just a beautiful place, new setting, a lot of novelty because you're in a new area, all of that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And that was really good for us. But just like anything that's really good, we came back to real life. And we kind of joked about it. I would always say, well, where's Mexico, Lindsay? Right? Like, what happened? We had this great thing, and now we're back, and what's going on?
That's what happened. She got really tired.
And then from there, that's when we got involved in the next level with you.
Great.
And I think that has been the next big step for us in the progression of good to great. Is we now know where we can go to learn. We have someone there helping us and like-minded people that we can bounce ideas off of. And that really has been our progression in where we're at. And this is me personally, and you can laugh if you want, but I would say we're about 50% of where the potential truly is.
Yeah. Because not only are you progressing, but you're also expanding your view of where we can be at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been really good. And the growth has been hard. There's been really difficult things and struggles and things that we have to work through together. But, I look at our marriage and where we're at now, and we were actually talking about this the other day, if we could help couples who are just starting out know what we know now, how much farther ahead they can be than where we were, right? We had to work through all of that stuff. It's taken us 15 years to get where we're at, where, really.
Like I said, it was like a make or break point. And there was nowhere to turn, like no help, no advice, I'm surprised we figured it out and we made it. And that, but then after that point, I remember like talking to friends and they'd be like, oh, I hate having to have sex with my husband, blah, blah. And I just would be like, no, like you're thinking about it all wrong. I mean, I used to think the same way too, like, oh, it was a chore thing right. But then when I learned like we can both enjoy it and it's meant to be the glue that like keeps our marriage together. It's like a secret weapon.
Yes.
And it would almost just make me so sad to be like, you don't see that. You're missing out. Right? Like this is one of the greatest joys about being married. It can bring us our greatest joy or our greatest frustration.
Yeah. That's so good. So, Lindsay, what is it for you then? Instead of looking at it as a chore, oh, not again, but now it's something you can get excited for. What is it about it? What's the quality in it that you find so good?
Well, I'm going to use some of the analogies we've talked about in our coaching with you. We used to use analogy that, working on your sex life is like going to the gym.
Yes.
Right? We like to go to the gym, work out. We like to be fit. The idea of getting to the gym is not great. Like, I'm like, I don't want to go to the gym. But I know if I go, I'm going to be happy I went.
Yes.
Right? And kind of what we learned talking with you is, I don't know if that's a super helpful thought for me because there's still that like drudgery behind it. Like, I
Right.
know I'll enjoy it once I do it. And we have also talked about in our coaching sessions, I love to travel and I love to go to Disneyland.
Yes.
I love Disney. I love
Uh-huh.
Disney World. So to change my perspective, instead of like sex is like going to the gym and like, oh, I'll enjoy it once I get there. And like Disneyland, yes, I'm
Uh-huh.
there. Let's do it.
Yes.
Right. So if I think of sex that, all of it is exciting. The
Yeah.
thought of going is exciting. The thought of how it's going to be when we're there, the experience I'm going to have, the memories I'm going to make.
And
right?
all the rides. Pun
All
intended.
right.
Right.
So the perspective change, right? And so
Uh-huh.
now that try and look at it that way. But to be real, like real life, I can't go to Disney every single day. Right?
No.
Uh-huh.
Good if I would. And that's okay, right?
Mhm.
That is one area we're trying to like. Life is still busy. It's still hard. There's still nights I'm like, I am so exhausted. I am just crashing on my bed. Don't talk to me. Don't touch me. I'm so tired. But for the most part, I think of intimacy. Now it's not like, okay, I should do this. I'll be glad I did later. It's now like, I'm excited about the journey because I know it's going to be great.
Yeah. Good. Because you're making it great for both.
Yeah. So I think that the gym thing was kind of where we first got. And now I've kind of shifted that mindset to now just enjoying the whole journey.
That's a great epiphany. And it's easier to make it a priority when it's something you know you can really enjoy.
Right.
Any other epiphanies along the way or during the coaching program, the Get Your Marriage On program?
I think one of the epiphanies that we first had, I think the first epiphany that we had was the helping her enjoy it, right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Learning, because guys, let's be honest, we don't really know. We think that we know, we pretend that we know, but we get married, we don't really know. And we're just trying to figure it out.
But we're expected to know because she doesn't know either.
Exactly.
And she's
she
looking
doesn't
to
know.
you to know all the answers.
Nobody knows, and you're guessing. And so learning that to take the time and to let her get to that point, whether that takes 5 minutes or 25 minutes or whatever, letting her get in that mindset and that mind frame so that she can orgasm and enjoy it. And that was the first, I think, epiphany that we had. When we started coaching, though, because when we learned that epiphany, that was the focus every time. Like, okay, here's the routine, here's the focus every single time. And it would sometimes even be to our detriment because she would get frustrated. It would take longer or whatever.
Right.
It's more like a checklist. It wasn't like enjoying the...
It was a checklist. Okay, yep, we got this done, we got this done, we got this done. Must have been a successful encounter.
Right.
And then as we got into the coaching and we got into the app and the next level, we have learned that there's so much more to it. You can enjoy it without that. You can enjoy it. You can be intimate and still not both orgasm, right? It's the time that you spend, the memories that you make at Disneyland. I guess I'll use that analogy that is most important. And that's now what we're learning and what we're focusing on as we grow. And as we get to that point, there's going to be another one that okay, now let's go to this step, right? But I think those are the two big epiphanies for us. And I believe they had to come in that order. We had to learn how to let her figure herself out, figure her body out, have me figure her out.
Throw out some blame, some shame, some cultural things, all the stuff.
Yep, all the stuff, the guilt, all that stuff. Get rid of it, get past it.
Even now, like when we talk about new things, it's like, oh, I don't know, is that uncomfortable? Is it not? And I love that sometimes you go into taboo topics because they don't have to be taboo, right?
Right. I
It's
mean,
all
you're married
about
now. Who else are you going to talk about it
why,
with? Right.
what you're doing between you. Yeah. What is your purpose to be stronger together?
Yes. One of the things that we have, and we're super busy, so as adventurous as I would like to be, we're still not there. So obviously we have a lot of steps to go. But one thing that we've talked about is we call it a 3-try rule. Our kids are young and they have a Pete the Cat. And Pete the Cat in the book, it has a 3-bite rule, right? You have to try something 3 times before you can say you don't like it.
Yes.
And we have that same rule with intimacy because the first time it might be like, oh no. And that's
most
you
of the
pull
time
back.
you don't like it the first time. It's new.
You don't like it the first because it's new. Exactly. And then the second time and then the third time. If after the third time you still don't like it, that's okay. It's okay to not like things. Right. And it's okay to be different in those things. But we do have that where we have to try something at least 3 times. And it doesn't have to be, okay, 3 nights in a row. You try something, shelve it for a little bit. That didn't really work out. Come back to it later and try it again later. So that I think is a big thing for us as well.
That's great. Good. Any other tips for busy couples to keep sex a priority?
Making it a priority, planning it. I am not a planner. I struggle planning it. I hate planning.
You feel like it takes the spontaneity out of it.
I feel like it
does.
takes the
Right?
out of it.
But
Right.
if you want it to be important and a priority, then
Exactly. If you want it to be a priority and you want it to be important, then you've got to plan it and you've got to stick with it. You can still have fun with it being planned.
Right.
Well, for me, it's a mindset. Like, I mean, I don't know about other crazy busy women, but if I have in the back of my mind, like, I need to reserve some of my energy for my husband tonight, then I will. I'll make sure I'm like kind of mentally and physically, I have something stored up for him and I'm not giving it all to everyone else all day. Right.
Yeah. So it helps. It helps a lot in that case.
Yeah. If you're busy, that's
for
definitely
us.
key.
We're so busy. And I think one other thing that's been a big epiphany for him, especially, is I'd almost say having lower expectations.
Yes.
We've talked about quite a bit.
Yeah.
When you have this high expectation that date night or sex is going to turn out this way and it doesn't, and you're disappointed, right? Like you're setting yourself up for failure.
I would actually correct that a little bit. I don't think it's having lower expectations. It's just understanding that your expectations won't always be met, and that's okay. Right? I still have those expectations. My expectations are not going to be low. I still will go and plan the perfect night and the perfect scenario and all of it, right? But I have to be okay when that doesn't happen. It's okay for it to not happen that way. I still like my expectations to be high because I feel that's what pushes us and drives us to grow. Right? It's not a matter of we're striving for perfection, knowing we'll never get there. That's the way that I would put it. Is it
But
striving
you're
for that?
flexible about it. That's what I like about it.
Being
Like
flexible.
earlier when you were saying, once you, like a few years ago, you figured out, oh, wait, Lindsay can have orgasms and love it too. And that became your default script. But when it wouldn't happen, it's easy to like be so rigid in your plans and your script.
Yeah.
That when it doesn't go as according to plan, it's all unravels. But then you learn how to be more flexible with it, right? Like, oh no, it's okay if we can still have a good time. We can still connect deeply. We still love each other in this. So I think that's what you're saying here. You can still keep a high expectation, but let's be flexible.
The difference, and I will tell this to all men who are like me, and if there are women out there like me, you're awesome. But I would say this to all men out there like me. The difference between being flexible and saying, hey, this is okay, is the difference between trying it again tomorrow night and waiting 2 or 3 weeks because you're both frustrated at each other.
Yeah.
That's the difference. If you can be flexible and realize and say, you know what, hey, this is okay. I had this plan or we were going to do this and it didn't work. That's okay. Try it again tomorrow night. Because though your wife will be way more likely to do it than if you are, wow, man, I'm frustrated. This is how I had it planned. And you told me that you would be, and now you're not. And then now you're 2, 3, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. You got to repair that first. Mm-hmm. So that would be the difference. That's my tip to all men like me is being flexible will change your life.
That's great. Well, Lindsay, you've given fantastic advice for wives. Keith, that's great advice for men. What advice would you give to someone who's maybe on the fence about joining the Get Your Marriage On program, that next level program we've been talking about?
Here's the thing that I would tell you. First thing is everybody looks at money, right?
Yep.
That's expensive, or can we afford to do this right now? Imagine yourself in 5 years. If you're sitting here in 5 years, you will not miss the money. But I can guarantee you the things that you will gain and the relationship that you have with your spouse will be worth any amount of money. You won't be able to put a price on it if you do it. If you don't, you'll never know the difference. But if you do it, 5 years from now, 3 years from now, you'll look back and be like, wow, I would have paid so much more to be where we're at.
Price of inaction.
Yeah. That's great. Good. Anything else to add to that, Lindsay?
I would just say that, we're both pretty stubborn people. Like we can figure this out on our own. We're good. We don't need help. We needed help. You need a person there. We joke, we call it a Svengali. You need this middleman sometimes. Because sometimes, he's so stuck in it's my way or I'm right and I am. And right. Sometimes we just need someone, that middleman, to open up some of the thoughts and the things that, I don't know, we just can't get past when it's just the two of us.
Mm-hmm.
And, a coach, that's what they're there for. They're there to be that middleman and then to help you get to that next level that you want to be. It's just like having a coach for sports. Right? You hire somebody to help you get better. And so if somebody's on the fence, like, it's fine, we can figure this out. We could look up a YouTube video or a Google article. Yeah, you could. But like, again, why? Why would you wait another minute if this is your priority and this is the most important thing, which we believe it is?
Yep.
Don't wait another minute to put it on the back burner, right? Like, you need to make it a priority, and this is the next step.
Fantastic. Great. Well, Keith and Lindsay, it's a pleasure hearing your wisdom and your experience. This has been fantastic. I love what you're talking about. And thank you for sharing this.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for listening. If you liked this episode, please check out getyourmarriageon.com for more resources on how to grow your marriage, make sex super fun, and spice things up without the yuck. Also, check out our signature coaching program for couples. Now go get your marriage on.